Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Monday. Finally, six-day losing streak for the index comes to an end today. The index snaps out of the red zone after sinking to the 6,200 level last week. Today, local stocks jumped 0.9%, sending it back to the 6,300 level at 6,317.41 to be exact. Earlier in the show, we had Chris Mangan of Triple Ace Equities. He was quite confident that while market may extend lower, investors would eventually start picking up shares and that a rally might be in the offing sooner than later. And that's what happened today. The surge comes in the heels, of course, of more vaccine arrivals in quite sizable amounts at that over the weekend. More than 2 million doses of AstraZeneca landed in the country via the COVAX facility. Before that, 1.5 million doses of Sinovac arrived on Friday. And tonight, the first batch of Pfizer shots will be arriving. We're talking 193,000 doses. But beyond the shots, of course, investors will be keeping close tabs on first quarter GDP. That is due tomorrow morning. A poll of economists showed first quarter GDP likely contracted by 2.6%, marking the fifth straight quarter that the economy declined, although if realized, this will be a slower decline than the preceding quarter's 8.3% slump, but worse off still than the 0.7% contraction a year ago. Mangun did say as well that investors pretty much priced this in already, as reflected by the decline so far this year for the local bourse. But if GDP surprises and there's some growth, he says it won't have much of an effect because of the tightening of restrictions in April. Investors, he said, will instead wait for more concrete progress that the economy is really bound for recovery. What's proving to be resilient, though, says Mangun, are, of course, the retail and food manufacturing sector, as well as some subdued growth numbers here from our lenders. But taking a look at our leaders and laggards for today, quite a mixed picture here, really, when you're trying to think of the sectors in which most of our leaders are from. Here you have GT Cap leading the pack here. It's up 5.4% to 528 apiece. Robinson's Land, not far behind even, is also has also seen a growth today, up by as much as 4.7% to 17 pesos and 28 centavos a share. That's after they reported first quarter net income at 2.9 billion pesos. That is a 13% growth. Also, ICTSI now up 4.3% to 141 pesos and 20 centavos a share. That's after first quarter profits rose by as much as 51%. Also, you have a number of conglomerates here in the green. You have SM Investments, Ayala Corporation, Aboitiz Equity Ventures, and San Miguel on the downside. PLDT proving to be the day's biggest drag here after net income slid modestly. As reported last Friday, net income at 5.8 billion pesos. PLDT, as you can see right here, down 2.6%. Now at 1,235 a share. Now, speaking of earnings, one conglomerate also released theirs today. I'm talking about Alliance Global. Net income plunged 62% to 10.3 billion pesos. That's coming from 27.1 billion pesos a year ago. This as the pandemic hit most of its businesses. Revenues likewise slipped from 180 billion pesos last year, down 28% to 129 billion pesos in the first quarter of 2021. The Andrew Tan-led company says they're now recalibrating strategies, especially on the market focus of its companies for a more balanced portfolio. CEO Kevin Tan said this would give them a more balanced stream of earnings post-pandemic. After those numbers came in, shares plunged from Alliance Global's rise earlier in the day, but AGI still managed to eke out a 0.2% gain today, now at 10 pesos and 38 centavos a share. Now, up to a would-be stock on the local bourse, Monday Nielsen sources say that's now in discussions with with Singapore State Investment Fund, GIC, and Hong Kong insurer AIA Group to become investors. It's also in talks with Fidelity International and Capital Group to buy stock. According to Bloomberg, I've realized that should put the food company on track to raise 48.6 billion pesos or $1 billion This would overshadow SM's 28.8 billion peso offering back in 2005. Mondanisin set to start trading June 7th. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Banco Central sees the need for continuous bank supervision as the COVID-19 pandemic rages on. The central bank noted that while lenders have been able to weather the health crisis so far, non-performing loans are still likely to pile up. The BSP says it will remain within manageable levels as the Financial Institution Strategic Transfer or FIS law gets implemented. As for the slump in loan growth, the BSP expects banks to continue managing risks prudently and for reassessments in industry regulations to take place in order to adapt to the new normal. Tech giant Microsoft is looking to integrate artificial intelligence within the Philippines' health sector in hopes of fast-tracking solutions for patients. Microsoft previously announced its acquisition of US-based AI solutions provider Nuance Communications for $20 billion. The company provides AI solutions like interactive voice response, virtual assistants, and digital biometrics for businesses, including healthcare institutions. Microsoft said this is their latest step in their industry-specific cloud strategy. Microsoft has been partnering with Philippine hospitals to provide cloud platform technologies to meet current and future demands. Over the past year, BPO advisory firm Outsource Accelerator has noted quite a surge in outsourcing quotation requests amid the pandemic. Is this a sign of more markets to be had here in the country? Let's find out from their founder, Derek Gallimore. Good afternoon, Derek.
Hi, Jes. How are you?
Okay, Derek, we're talking 1,118 inbound requests here so far, at least in the past 12 months. Which companies are we talking about here and from which locations?
So these are small and medium-sized businesses, primarily from right across the globe. It includes 32 countries and from over 23 industry sectors. And outsourcing from our perspective is absolutely booming. This is over the last 12 months alone, on our platform alone, that is about $164 million worth of contract value and is about 5,000 full-time professional roles. And it's all inbound inquiries into Philippine outsourcing.
And what do you think is driving this interest here despite the pandemic, especially coming from the small businesses sector?
So outsourcing is now booming, and I think that there is a second wave about to hit, and it could be about 40 times bigger than the initial wave of outsourcing that has given the Philippines the incredible economic head start that it's had. What's catalyzing this really is the increased globalization, the increased acceptance of remote work, and of course, in the shadow of COVID, everyone now is looking to cut costs. So outsourcing is really coming to the fore, and people are really considering or reconsidering offshore staffing for their businesses. And this is becoming more normalized right across the globe and across every sector and across every business size.
Does this in any way signify that somehow the industry or the sector has managed to at least stabilize after, of course, being forced to transition in 2020?
Absolutely. With COVID, it caused incredible disruption to the industry. However, we actually took a survey for the last 12 months over COVID of the BPO industry, and there was huge growth. Simply put, outsourcing, despite the hard conditions, has boomed over the last 12 months. It grew in our survey by about 30,000 staff. It grew from 30,000 staff up to 40,000 staff. So a growth of 30%, it's a small sample size, but it is representative of the entire industry, that there is incredible growth and demand out there for highly skilled professional Filipino staff.
Now, again, more to that point, earlier you did mention this is, of course, the over 1,100 inbound requests here would generate somehow thousands of jobs, around 5,000, if I'm not mistaken. What skills are mostly in demand here?
Look, it's everything. It's moving away from the basic call centers, from answering phones, from doing customer service. It is more staff augmentation, and the higher value roles are becoming more valued. So the developers, the marketers, the social media marketers, people that are in strategic roles, even architects and accountants and lawyers, all of these are now in huge demand globally. And globally, businesses are now looking to the Philippines as an incredible source of highly capable, highly qualified professional staff that can work now globally, but sitting at home, and of course, at a great price.
But that also puts into question, have Philippine BPO somehow pivoted fast enough from just being a voice-centered industry to at least performing other functions here, like chatbots and even AI?
Absolutely. Look, the industry was built off the back of call centers, but now that is the old school. We have to move on. The new school is staff augmentation. It's Filipino staff working shoulder to shoulder with staff across the West, businesses across the West on an equal footing. And that is the future of globalized employment. We're no longer talking thousands of people in call centers, but I believe that there is capacity for another 40 million jobs to be outsourced over the next 10 to 20 years. That is 40 times bigger than the current market that's already in the Philippines. It is set to boom.
The question is, how can the country best position itself to take advantage of these opportunities?
I mean, it's doing incredibly well now. We are trying to position the Philippines as the Swiss banking of outsourcing. It's been doing it a long time. It's got incredible executive talent. It's got incredible people here. English skills is incredible, highly culturally aligned. And, education is something that is maybe lagging, but it's a challenge in every country to stay up to date and current with the skill sets required. So, the Philippines is leading the way in terms of professional offshore staffing solutions, and it's getting an incredible brand related to that.
But that also puts into the spotlight how we fare compared to our key competition when it comes to the sector, especially India. So how have we fared so far with a pandemic in the backdrop?
Yeah, look, every industry has its competition, and it keeps us, keen. I believe the Philippines wins hands down now. You can't get complacent. I believe just through the cultural alignment, the sort of less friction, the better language capabilities of the Philippines, and also the generalist skill base of the Philippines is far more suitable for the small and medium-sized businesses across the globe that are looking for a generalized team of multidisciplinary professionals. And they're looking for low friction, they're looking for easy engagement, and basically able to build a team as they would in their home country or city. So hands down, the Philippines. But of course, you can't get complacent, and you've got to stay competitive, and you've got to do incredible work.
Now, of course, despite all this positive outlook here, I mean, looking at 2020, at least coming from IBPAP, revenue was actually flat last year. What's your outlook for the sector this year, moving forward, especially?
Absolutely booming, absolutely booming. And I would query the accuracy of the official figures. There really is no tracking of the entire offshore industry. And anecdotally, and also through our survey, we can see that in the small and medium-sized BPOs, they are booming, and they are largely off the radar. These are BPOs with 500 to 5,000 or possibly 10,000 seats. They're largely off the radar of the official sort of surveys, and they are just seeing unbridled growth over the last really 3 to 5 years.
But Derek, if I may ask, what's the total share coming from these small and medium units, like what you mentioned?
Well, that's exactly the problem. No one knows. Even in the grey economy, in the sort of Upwork freelancer gig economy, they say there's about 3.5 million people there. No one knows. In the small, medium-sized BPOs, I would expect that it's at least 500,000 to 1 million. And of course, then you have the call centers, which is about 1.5 million. But I see growth of another 40 million staff being offshored. And it is up to the Philippines to capture those 40 million jobs. And I think it has a great opportunity to do so.
Okay, so, quite a level of optimism there for the local BPO industry. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Outsource Accelerator founder Derek Gallimore. Thank you, Derek.
Thanks.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, May 10, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.